mistress and pregnant wife join forces for revenge on the scumbag Millionaire. Now, they're besties. Have you ever watched two rivals form the most unexpected alliance, one so powerful? It crumbled the very world of a millionaire who believed he was invincible. That's exactly what happened when Ariana, the wronged wife, and Beatrice, the mistress, realized they had far more in common than just the same scumbag partner. Betrayals, hidden bank accounts, clandestine phone calls, every thread of his grand deception unraveled under their collective cunning. If you crave an epic saga of heartbreak, cunning strategies, and the fiery bond that blossoms between two extraordinary women, stay tuned. Because this isn't just revenge, it's a revolution that will leave you speechless. Ariana Fox was proud to be Mistress. Fox, at least that's what she told herself most mornings, staring into her elegant vanity mirror. She had grown up in a modest home in upstate Michigan, where her family counted every penny. When she won a scholarship to Harvard University, she figured it was the key to a better life. She never expected that key to unlock the door to a whirlwind romance and eventual marriage to Gabriel Fox, a self-made millionaire with seemingly endless charm. Gabriel's rise to wealth was the sort of story that peppered lifestyle magazines. Beginning as a small-town dreamer, he stumbled onto a tech idea that soared in Silicon Valley. By the time Ariana met him, he was already known for his lavish parties, 9-figure bank accounts, and philanthropic gestures that plastered him across local tabloids. Yet behind the glitz, Ariana initially saw a genuine soul. He'd courted her with hand-written letters, donated generously to her childhood library, and seemed enthralled by her intellect. They tied the knot in a grand ceremony at the Four Seasons Hotel in Manhattan, a wedding that made for glossy pictures in high society blogs. But soon after the honeymoon dust settled, Ariana began spotting cracks in Gabriel's persona. His phone was forever locked, and he was evasive about trivial details like who he was meeting for dinner or why he'd need to jet off to Europe at a moment's notice. She brushed aside the early alarm bells, dismissing them as quirks of an ambitious man juggling a massive enterprise. After all, she was the envy of many. A plush penthouse on the Upper East Side, closets stuffed with Prada and Cartier, invites to exclusive galas. Yet deep down, Ariana craved more than fancy dinners and designer wardrobes. She longed for emotional closeness conversations that went beyond money or business expansions. Whenever she tried to confide in Gabriel, he'd flash that disarming smile and promise they'd talk next time. But next time never arrived. He was always out networking events, investment summits, or in urgent private meetings. Late nights found Ariana in their penthouse library, reading old classics while the city shimmered below. She often asked herself if she'd made a mistake. Did she marry the man or the myth? And was she too blind to see warning signs of something more sinister lurking beneath the polished surface? One day, while tidying up the study, Ariana discovered an unfamiliar earring hidden between couch cushions. A drop earring of emerald stone, definitely not hers. She placed it in her jewelry drawer, convinced she'd eventually find a rational explanation. But each day that passed without clarity only fanned her suspicions. Little did she know, this small piece of jewelry was only the beginning of a tangled web that would soon ensnare her life. Although her marriage looked perfect to the outside world, Ariana sensed it was as fragile as a soap bubble, one prick, and everything would burst. She just never imagined how spectacularly it would happen, or that she'd find a surprising ally in a woman she was supposed to despise. Beatrice Lang had no illusions about the men she often encountered in her job. As a high-level marketing consultant for major luxury brands, she found herself thrown into a world of excess late-night parties on yachts, corporate dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, and schmoozing in smoky VIP lounges. With her sharp wits and striking confidence, Beatrice drew attention. She was used to fending off the wealthy, the married, and the unscrupulous. Yet, ironically, it was the one man she believed sincere who led her astray. She first met Gabriel Fox at a tech convention in Berlin. Beatrice was there to pitch a brand partnership for a cutting-edge auto company, while Gabriel was scouting for new R&D opportunities. Their connection was instantaneous. Over after-hours cocktails, they discovered a shared love for 19th-century poetry and a mutual frustration with hollow corporate jargon. That night, Gabriel confided in her about feeling lonely at the top, how success felt meaningless without someone to share it with. It sounded heartbreakingly genuine. The next day, they walked through Berlin's historical sites, indulged in local street foods, and talked about their childhood dreams. Gabriel claimed he had separated from his spouse, painting Ariana as an ambitious social climber who insisted on continuing the marriage for the sake of appearances. He spoke of emotional neglect, how he'd tried to salvage things, but the relationship was effectively over. Beatrice, who'd had her share of heartbreak, sympathized. She believed him. She saw vulnerability where, in truth, cunning might have lurked. They swapped numbers. Over the following months, whenever business took them to the same city, they'd meet. Dinners in Paris, weekend getaways in Napa. The more time they spent together, the more Beatrice felt certain she'd found someone worth risking everything for. She rarely questioned his secrecy when he'd hush phone calls or abruptly change hotel reservations. She accepted his explanation about Ariana. They still lived under one roof for legal reasons, but the arrangement was purely a facade. Paperwork for divorce was in progress. It wasn't until she inadvertently stumbled upon a gossip article about Ariana and Gabriel that a chord of doubt struck. The article portrayed them as a power couple, no mention of separation or imminent divorce. That was the first crack. Then she noticed how his business trips frequently overlapped with Ariana's whereabouts, how he refused to let her meet any of his close friends. And that earring he once carelessly pulled from his pocket, he claimed it was an old item of Ariana's, but the timeline didn't add up. At first, she told herself she was overthinking. Love can be messy, especially in high circles. But as she began to piece these details together, suspicion turned into alarm. Could she actually be the other woman in a marriage that wasn't as broken as Gabriel claimed? Her gut churned with the possibility. She prided herself on being nobody's fool, yet here she was, possibly entangled in an adulterous affair. She decided she needed proof, real evidence. But never in her wildest dreams did she expect she'd soon be colluding with the wife, forging an unlikely sisterhood that would shake Gabriel's entire empire. Ariana and Beatrice might never have crossed paths if not for a fateful night at a charitable gala in New York. The event was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, an annual fundraiser supporting art education. Gabriel was scheduled to attend as a major donor. Ariana, wearing a sleek emerald gown to match the earring she still kept in a dresser drawer as a silent reminder, joined him that evening. While greeting fellow socialites, her eyes kept darting around, scanning for any sign that might confirm her suspicions. Little did Ariana know, Beatrice had also received an invitation thanks to a professional connection with a philanthropic organization. Unsure if Gabriel would be there or not, she attended in hopes of gleaning more about his public life, his estranged wife, and any cracks in his story. In the glittering main hall, Ariana sipped champagne while Gabriel networked in a corner with potential investors. That's when she spotted a familiar figure across the room, a woman with a poised stance, a confident air, and an understated black evening dress. Ariana realized she'd seen her photograph once in Gabriel's phone. She was labeled as beer consultant. Something in Ariana's chest twisted. Why was this consultant at a high society gala like this? She watched as the woman scanned the crowd with a tense expression, as though searching for someone. Curiosity warred with apprehension. Ariana approached a mutual acquaintance to glean the woman's identity. "That's Beatrice Lang," the acquaintance said. "A brilliant marketing strategist. She's rumored to be expanding deals with some top-tier millionaires. Heard she's close with—" "Oh, there's Gabriel." The friend trailed off, raising an eyebrow. Ariana's heart jolted. So people had noticed. It wasn't long before Gabriel also spotted Beatrice. She offered him a tight smile from across the marble floor. Ariana felt the air crackle with tension. Something intangible passed between them. In that moment, Ariana realized she could no longer bury her doubts. She decided to test the waters. Gathering her composure, Ariana approached Beatrice directly. "You must be Beatrice Lang," she said, extending a hand. "I've heard about your marketing prowess. I'm Ariana Fox." Beatrice's eyes widened for a flicker of a second. Then she responded with polite warmth. "A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Fox. I've heard so much about your philanthropic work." Both women wore the smooth veneer of civility, but beneath it, each tested the other with subtle, searching gazes. Ariana considered mentioning the earring. Meanwhile, Beatrice weighed whether to reveal the half-truths Gabriel had fed her. The conversation lasted mere minutes, all pleasantries, but by the end of it, Ariana suspected this was the woman behind the earring. Behind those nights, Gabriel vanished. And Beatrice felt certain Ariana was unaware of any so-called divorce in progress. They parted with forced smiles, each reeling inside. Ariana retreated to the restroom, tears pricking her eyes at the realization her fears were valid. Beatrice stepped outside for air, wondering how deeply she'd been betrayed. Both women left the gala with uneasy hearts, while Gabriel orchestrated a grand donation announcement, blissfully or willfully ignorant of the quiet storm brewing between the two women who might just join forces against him. Ariana spent the next day pacing the penthouse, replaying her conversation with Beatrice. Something about the woman's startled reaction and her own lingering questions made Ariana more determined to uncover the truth. She had always let Gabriel keep his secrets, trusting it was merely business, but that era was over. She began a methodical search through his home office files, laptops, and phone records, albeit mindful to leave no trace of her snooping. In a locked drawer, Ariana found a folder labeled Client Special Projects. Inside were receipts for extravagant dinners at Le Bernardin, five-star hotel stays in cities like Miami and Rome, and even a pair of plane tickets that overlapped with Ariana's own visit to her parents' house last month. The second name on the airline itinerary was blacked out, but Ariana suspected it was Beatrice. Her heart pounded. She recalled how Gabriel had cancelled a weekend trip with her, citing urgent business in Hong Kong. Now she held evidence that he was in Rome with someone else. She snapped photos of the documents, forwarding them to her personal email under a disguised subject line. Meanwhile, across town, Beatrice decided to do a similar deep dive. She used her network to gather intel on Gabriel's public activities, press releases, event attendance, philanthropic contributions. Each clue suggested Gabriel remained very much a public figure with Ariana, contradicting his claim of a silent, near-concluded marriage. She also discovered interviews quoting Ariana's remarks on building a family foundation with him. The final straw arrived when a co-worker let slip a rumor. Gabriel Fox's estranged wife was apparently very much at his side, while Dahlia, a PR manager in a partner firm, claimed he was happily married. Beatrice felt sick. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through Gabriel's texts to her messages, brimming with hollow reassurances. She decided she needed a confrontation, but not before arming herself with more proof. If Gabriel was truly playing them both, He had to be held accountable. That night, Ariana mustered the courage to question Gabriel. "Have you heard of Beatrice Lang?" she asked, in an offhand manner, flipping through a magazine. Gabriel's eyes flicked with a shadow of alarm. "She's just a consultant," he said, feigning nonchalance. "We've had a few business dinners." "Why?" Ariana shrugged, letting the matter drop, but inside, her suspicions flared anew at his flippant response. The very next morning, Ariana composed a brief email to Beatrice. "We need to talk. It's about Gabriel. Let's meet for coffee at the Redwood Cafe tomorrow, 10 a.m. No drama, just the truth." She hesitated before hitting send, but finally pressed the button. She had no guarantee Beatrice would respond, but she had to try. In her heart, Ariana wondered if she was stepping into a lion's den. Reaching out to the woman who might be her husband's mistress was risky. Emotions could explode. But a voice inside told her that Beatrice might be equally wronged, equally clueless about the real situation. If so, forging an unexpected alliance could be Ariana's best chance at justice and at the closure she so desperately needed. Redwood Cafe was a cozy, unassuming spot nestled on a quiet side street. Ariana chose it precisely for its laid-back atmosphere and out-of-the-way location, hoping to avoid the prying eyes of acquaintances. She arrived early, wearing a simple sweater and jeans, resisting the urge to mask her anxiety with high-end glamour. By 10 a.m., she was nursing a latte, scanning the entrance for Beatrice. 5 minutes later, the door swung open. Beatrice entered, a guarded expression on her face. She wore a chic blazer, offset by minimal makeup, looking every bit the accomplished professional. Ariana braced herself as she waved Beatrice over. They sat across from each other, the tension palpable. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ariana broke the silence with a shaky exhale. "Thank you for coming." Beatrice nodded, glancing around to ensure no one seemed to be eavesdropping. "I'm not sure why I'm here," she admitted, swirling her cappuccino, "but something tells me we both need clarity." Ariana mustered her courage, placing a single piece of evidence on the table, a photocopy of a receipt from a luxury hotel in Rome. "I found this in Gabriel's locked drawer," she said, voice quivering. "It's dated the weekend he told me he was in Hong Kong. The second occupant's name was blacked out, but I suspect it was you." Beatrice's eyes widened. She recognized the hotel's name. They had stayed there together. The revelation tightened her gut with anger. "He told me he was traveling alone for business," she said quietly, almost to herself. Ariana studied her face. She saw genuine surprise and a flicker of betrayal. "He told me you two had a purely professional relationship," Ariana added. "But the more I dig, the more lies I uncover." Beatrice let out a humorless laugh. "He said you were separated," she confessed. "He claimed you were living together for appearances, that the marriage was dead. I believed him." She paused, eyes clouding. "Guess that's the oldest trick in the book." Sorrow tugged at Ariana's heart. She saw in Beatrice's expression the same heartbreak she felt. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, fueling a mixture of rage and kinship. "So we're both his unwitting pawns," Ariana murmured. "He's betrayed us both." They lapsed into a heavy silence, each grappling with the enormity of Gabriel's deceit. Eventually, Ariana voiced the unspoken question, "What do we do now?" Beatrice leaned forward, her voice low and charged with determination. "We make him pay," she said bluntly. "He's taken our trust, twisted it for his own gratification. I'm not one to let that slide. Are you?" Ariana swallowed hard. She'd never pictured herself in such a vengeful scenario. But the memory of lonely nights, of that earring she found, of the humiliating web he'd woven her anger flared. "No," she answered firmly, surprising even herself with the steel in her tone. They locked gazes, something electric passing between them, a shared resolve. In that moment, they realized they could either tear each other apart, as Gabriel might have hoped, or unite. and, uniting, had a potent appeal. Beatrice finished her cappuccino. Then let's do it. Together. But we need a plan and we need proof that no one can deny. Ariana nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Agreed, let's bring down Gabriel Fox on our terms. And with that, two women who were supposed to be adversaries silently forged an alliance that would soon rattle Gabriel's opulent world to its core. The plan took shape over several late-night calls and covert meetings. Ariana and Beatrice brought different strengths to the table. Ariana, through her marriage, had direct access to Gabriel's personal habits, his email accounts, the safe in his office, the philanthropic circles he courted. Beatrice, with her background in marketing and brand strategies, understood how to spin narratives, track digital footprints, and leverage social networks. Step 1 involved collecting ironclad evidence of Gabriel's wrongdoing, not just infidelity, but also potential financial discrepancies. If they could prove any form of fraud, unethical dealings, or attempts to cheat investors, it would amplify the consequences. Ariana recalled how she'd found suspicious accounts labeled Project X in a set of hidden ledgers. While she initially assumed it was just business, the possibility that Gabriel was laundering money or hiding assets from shareholders now seemed real. Meanwhile, Beatrice recognized that a well-timed leak to the press or a strategic social media reveal could force Gabriel into a corner. He thrives on public admiration, she told Ariana. If we show the world his ugly side at the worst possible moment, he'll scramble. They decided on a timeline. Over the next month, Ariana would gather documents from the penthouse and Gabriel's private office. Beatrice, still in contact with him as part of her consulting work, would watch for suspicious movements or major deals. They'd lay a trap for him around the date of a grand corporate event, the unveiling of a new philanthropic initiative set to take place at a glitzy black tie function in partnership with the Guggenheim Museum. If they could sabotage that event with revelations of Gabriel's double life, it would be an epic downfall. Their alliance soon morphed from necessity into genuine friendship. Late-night texts escalated into heartfelt confessions. Ariana opened up about feeling lonely and overshadowed by a husband whose spotlight never dimmed. Beatrice confessed her guilt at having unwittingly participated in a marital betrayal. They consoled each other, shared jokes, and even discovered common interests like a shared fascination with vintage architecture and a secret love for cheesy 1990s pop songs. Despite the swirling chaos, they found moments of laughter and solace. Still, doubts gnawed at Ariana. "Are we going too far?" she asked once. "What if we ruin him beyond all measure?" "I once loved him," her voice quavered. Beatrice placed a reassuring hand on Ariana's shoulder. "He chose this path," Beatrice said gently. "We're just unveiling the truth. If he loses everything, it's on him." As the date of the philanthropic event neared, Ariana's nerves skyrocketed. She carefully collected bank statements, found references to hush money paid to ambiguous contacts, and even stumbled onto an email chain discussing questionable overseas deals. Each discovery left her more convinced that Gabriel was no hapless cheater. He was a man bending moral lines for greed and power. Unbeknownst to them, Gabriel sensed an undercurrent shifting. Ariana seemed cooler toward him, and Beatrice sometimes dodged his calls. Yet he wrote it off as typical female moodiness or business stress. He had no clue the betrayal swirling under his nose was actually pointed at him. Soon enough, the trap they were laying would snap shut, leaving him gasping for escape. A week before the Guggenheim Gala, Ariana awoke to find the penthouse in unusual disarray. Gabriel had apparently returned from a late business meeting in a foul mood. Documents were strewn across the living room table contracts, referencing real estate developments in Dubai, meeting notes with cryptic references to confidential expansions. Ariana inched closer, scanning for anything relevant to their plan. Then she saw something that made her pulse skip: an airline itinerary to Dubai for 2 passengers, set for next month. She recognized the second name, Beatrice's legal name. Not Lang, but Beatrice O. Spencer, a name used for official work travel. Her stomach twisted. The nerve of him! He was planning another rendezvous, as if the entire fiasco with Rome wasn't enough. Ariana snapped photos of the itinerary, rage boiling. Later, she texted Beatrice about it. The mistress-turned-ally responded with a mixture of disbelief and revulsion. "He never asked me about Dubai," she wrote. "He's forging my involvement to cover who he's really taking. Or maybe he planned to spring a surprise trip on me, like I'd jump for joy. This is insane." The next day, Beatrice arranged a quiet lunch with Gabriel under the guise of finalizing marketing plans for a new product line. She carefully probed him about upcoming travel, including the supposed Dubai trip. He spun a web of half-truths, claiming the second ticket was for an assistant, and that everything was purely professional. Beatrice played along, but inside she seethed. He was lying to her face again. That evening, she recounted every detail to Ariana. Though each new deception fueled their plan, Ariana couldn't shake the pang of heartbreak. She rummaged through old photos on her phone, her and Gabriel at a beach in Hawaii, arms wrapped around each other, laughing. It was as if she was looking at strangers. She felt a wave of sadness for the man she thought she married, a version of him that perhaps never existed. Instead, he was a scoundrel weaving illusions to maintain an empire built on duplicity. Beatrice, too, wrestled with conflicting emotions. She hated that she'd fallen for his false charm, yet the memory of their time in Berlin still tugged at her. The sincerity she thought she saw in him felt so real. She realized now it might have been a well-practiced performance, a role he played to keep her enthralled. Despite their emotional toll, the two women pressed on. Ariana pressed the White House staff members for discreet insights, learning that Gabriel recently hosted private guests in the penthouse, while Ariana visited her parents. Meanwhile, Beatrice tapped into her marketing circles, gleaning that Gabriel was quietly shopping for a brand ambassador who might help him launder aspects of his shady real estate deals. Each revelation was more damning, each phone screenshot or financial ledger forging the chains that would soon pull him down. As the clock ticked toward the gala night, Ariana and Beatrice tested the final pieces of their plan. They would present evidence to the right people, journalists, possibly investigators, at the perfect moment, overshadowing Gabriel's philanthropic facade with a tidal wave of scandal. If it succeeded, his public image would crack wide open, and the business alliances that fueled him might vanish. They met one last time to confirm the plan at a nondescript diner. Over coffee, Ariana's hand trembled slightly, but her eyes shone with determination. "We do this," she said, voice firm, "and there's no turning back." Beatrice nodded, lips pressed together in solidarity. "We're in this together," she replied, reaching out to give Ariana's hand a reassuring squeeze. The bond they forged, though formed in heartbreak, was now tempered by purpose and unstoppable synergy. Gabriel had no idea how close the net was to ensnaring him. The Guggenheim Museum radiated under the city lights, its modern spiral architecture hosting a glittering gala. Guests arrived in limousines and black SUVs, stepping onto a red carpet lined by photographers. The event was billed as a philanthropic venture to support art education, and Gabriel Fox was headlining with a generous donation that would name a new wing after his family. Ariana arrived early, wearing a refined midnight blue gown. She'd perfected a poised smile, exchanging pleasantries with socialites, discreetly scanning the crowd for a sign of Beatrice or for Gabriel's potential allies. She felt the hush of anticipation coil in her stomach, as though the entire night was perched on the brink of chaos. Beatrice slipped in through a side entrance, a press pass around her neck, courtesy of a journalist friend. She wore an understated black cocktail dress, carrying a small bag that contained a USB drive loaded with every incriminating piece of evidence. They'd gathered emails, travel records, suspicious bank accounts. At precisely 8:00 p.m., she signaled Ariana with a subtle nod from across the exhibit hall, the hush between them saying everything, the plan, was in motion. Gabriel arrived with the swagger of a king among courtiers. He wore a tailored tuxedo, greeting donors and posing for cameras with practiced ease. A hush fell when he took the stage to deliver opening remarks. As he spoke about the importance of art and community, Ariana marveled at how convincingly he feigned virtue. Applause followed him off the stage. He spent the next hour mingling with high-profile guests, weaving talk of expansions and philanthropic dreams, completely unaware that two women he'd wronged were about to dismantle his facade. The turning point came when Ariana intentionally bumped into a star financial reporter from the New York Times, introducing herself warmly. "I understand you're looking for a scoop on Gabriel's next venture," she teased, guiding the reporter to an alcove where Beatrice joined them. Within minutes, they had the reporter hooked with talk of hidden funds and contradictory statements in Gabriel's official disclosures. On a small laptop, Beatrice displayed the scanned ledgers and emails. The reporter's eyes widened, her notepad filling with furious scribbles. "If this is real," she breathed, "it could be the biggest scandal in months." Next, they approached a friend of Beatrice's who worked for a major business news network, feeding him the same revelations. Ariana made sure to highlight the philanthropic hypocrisy, Gabriel's supposed generosity masked by corruption. They insisted that public interest demanded these exposures. Both reporters promised to run with the story as soon as they verified the materials. Meanwhile, Ariana texted the main info to an anonymous whistleblower tip line. She could almost taste the adrenaline. The final blow was orchestrated precisely. As Gabriel took the stage a second time to thank donors for raising a record sum, Ariana discreetly forwarded a link to every phone number on her social circle list, including key stakeholders at Gabriel's firm, with the subject line, "The Real Gabriel Fox, see attached." The attachment was a concise summary of their evidence. By the time Gabriel concluded his speech, half the crowd was checking phones, eyes widening, murmurs rippling across the room. Confusion swelled into gasps. The hush soon broke into frantic hush-hush chatter. Beatrice lingered near a corner, observing the meltdown. Ariana stood by the refreshments, composure unwavering, heart pounding with savage satisfaction. A single beep on Ariana's phone indicated the press release had just dropped online. The walls around Gabriel's empire were about to collapse live in front of New York's finest. Ariana exhaled a breath she felt she'd been holding for years. He might still manage some damage control, but the foundation was undeniably cracked. She glanced at Beatrice across the hall. With a shared gaze, they understood it was done, and there was no going back. Chaos erupted within minutes of Ariana's mass email and the journalists' frantic tweets. Attendees wore stunned expressions as they scrolled through their phones, whispering among themselves, pointing at Gabriel, who was still on stage shaking hands. Reporters circled like hawks, cameras clicking and microphones thrust forward. At first, Gabriel wasn't aware of the sudden shift in atmosphere. He was too busy reveling in the applause. Then a colleague approached him, phone in hand, face ashen. "Gabriel, you need to see this." She turned the screen, revealing a major news site with the headline, "Philanthropy or Ploy." Documents suggest Gabriel Fox's alleged fraud and double life. Subheadings mentioned hidden accounts, questionable deals, and rumors of extramarital affairs. The color drained from Gabriel's face. He tried to maintain composure, quietly excusing himself from a group of donors, but more people approached him, demanding explanations. Photographers closed in, capturing his every grimace. He made a beeline for the exit, but a cluster of journalists blocked his path. Questions fired from all sides, Mr. Fox. Can you comment on the uncovered financial records? Is it true you embezzled funds from your own company's charity branch? What about the Mistress rumors? How do you respond to allegations you lied about your marriage? Gabriel's typical cool fled. He stammered. No comment. This is nonsense. Attempting to break free, he nearly shoved a reporter aside, further fueling the media frenzy. By the time he reached the foyer, security had to intervene to keep the throng at bay. From across the lobby, Ariana observed his meltdown with a solemn triumph. She recalled all those nights he brushed off her concerns, all the times he belittled her instincts. Now, the tide had turned, and the world saw the cracks in his gilded image. Meanwhile, Beatrice was near the main staircase, calmly texting a contact who confirmed the story was trending on social media. The swirl of outraged comments, speculation, and schadenfreude soared with each minute. The museum's PR team tried to salvage the event, reminding guests that the fundraiser was about supporting art education, not about Gabriel Fox's personal scandal. But the damage was done. Six quietly slipped away, not wanting to be associated with a potential criminal. The hush was broken only by the squeal of media vans pulling up outside. In a quiet corner, Ariana and Beatrice found each other. The look they exchanged was part relief, part sadness. They had achieved their goal, unveiling Gabriel's deceptions for all to see. Yet it felt bittersweet. Ariana's marriage was effectively over. Any illusions of salvage were shattered. Beatrice had validated her suspicion that their relationship was built on lies. But they had forged something else, a sisterhood, a solidarity that no longer felt forced but genuine. For a moment, Ariana's eyes stung with tears. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We took him down." Beatrice nodded. "He deserved it," she replied, though her voice held a hint of sorrow. "He brought this on himself." They lingered a bit longer, watching museum staff hush the chaos. Then, arms linked in silent support, they left the Guggenheim. The night air was brisk, the city alive with scandal. Despite the swirl of reporters and onlookers, they slipped into a waiting cab, heads high. Their revenge was complete, yet neither fully realized how the aftermath would shake not just Gabriel's empire, but their own futures in ways unexpected. By morning, the tabloids and major news outlets were saturated with Gabriel Fox's scandal. Headlines screamed about alleged fraud, hidden real estate dealings, and damning evidence of double dealing in philanthropic funds. The public was outraged, particularly because Gabriel had cultivated an image of a benevolent millionaire, championing charities and social causes. Within days, the board of directors at Fox Innovations convened an emergency meeting. Investors balked, pulling out capital in droves. The stock price plummeted. Ex-partners demanded clarifications on suspicious transactions. Meanwhile, law enforcement eyed the allegations of financial misconduct, hinting at possible investigations. Gabriel, for his part, barricaded himself in a private penthouse suite at a lesser-known hotel, evading the paparazzi who'd camp outside his usual haunts. He fired off frantic calls to crisis PR consultants, insisting everything was a misunderstanding. But the torrent of negative press and the volume of evidence gleaned from Ariana and Beatrice's data dump was overwhelming. Ariana had moved out earlier, taking refuge in a smaller apartment she'd rented under a friend's name, both to avoid media harassment and to preserve her emotional sanity. She spent hours scouring new articles about Gabriel's downfall, feeling a mix of vindication and heartbreak. She tried to keep busy, volunteering at a local community center, forging a new life free from her husband's overshadowing presence. In quiet moments, she wondered how it had come to this. She recalled the sincere man he once portrayed himself to be. Was any of it real? Beatrice similarly found her business dealings impacted. Some prospective clients hesitated, wary of connecting themselves to someone embroiled in scandal. However, her existing reputation as a top strategist still held weight, and a few bold clients offered her sympathy, seeing that she was also a victim. She recognized that once the dust settled, she might emerge stronger, but for now, she navigated the flurry of questions about her link to Gabriel. In the midst of the chaos, Ariana and Beatrice remained in close contact. They texted daily, sharing updates and moral support. They even joked about their unusual path to friendship. "We should write a book," when the mistress and wife unite, Beatrice teased in one late-night message. Ariana replied with a laughing emoji, though tears stung her eyes. For every light-hearted moment, there was a lingering sorrow. The heartbreak was real, and the menacing attention from the press took a toll. Yet, ironically, leaning on each other made them both feel less alone. Meanwhile, Gabriel grew desperate. Freed from illusions, he realized the two women he'd tried to manipulate had banded together to topple him. He resented them, scorned them, but a small part of him acknowledged that he had dug his own grave. His lawyers worked round the clock to salvage the business, drafting statements disclaiming any intentional fraud. They attempted to place blame on rogue employees or clerical mishaps. But the public wasn't convinced. The sheer detail of the leaked materials suggested a methodical cover-up orchestrated by none other than Gabriel himself. With each passing day, Ariana and Beatrice's vantage point from the sidelines offered them a sense of closure. The scumbag millionaire was facing the consequences. But as the legal net closed in, they suspected Gabriel might lash out, seeking retribution. With looming lawsuits and potential criminal charges, the final chapter of this saga was yet unwritten. The cost of revenge, they realized, might extend beyond him, and they would need to brace for whatever came next. A month after the Guggenheim Gala, the authorities made their move. Gabriel Fox was slapped with a formal investigation notice, targeting allegations of fraud and possible money laundering. The headlines blared, "Fallen philanthropist under criminal probe." Media outlets speculated about jail time. Some even called him the new face of corporate corruption. In the swirl of depositions and subpoenas, Ariana found herself facing legal scrutiny. As Gabriel's wife, she had signed certain documents over the years. Investigators wanted to know how much she knew, suspecting she might have been complicit. Ariana enlisted a lawyer who reassured her that her involvement was minimal. She had no direct ties to the incriminating accounts. Yet testifying in a high-profile case intimidated her. The only solace was that she had the truth on her side, along with the evidence proving she was another of Gabriel's victims rather than a co-conspirator. Beatrice, too, received an inquiry. She had spent time in business dinners with Gabriel, after all. The investigators probed her knowledge of his finances, questioning whether her marketing dealings were fronts for suspicious activity. She calmly explained her role, providing logs of legitimate consultancy tasks. Through it all, she handed over every communication that hinted at Gabriel's manipulations. The process was draining, but she held firm, determined not to let him cast blame on her. Meanwhile, Gabriel attempted to spin a narrative of innocence. He claimed Ariana acted out of jealousy, forging documents to sabotage him. He insinuated that Beatrice was a disgruntled consultant who faked evidence. But these arguments found little traction once the forensics team verified the authenticity of the leaked files. Email timestamps IP addresses, and internal memos formed a robust chain pointing to his guilt. Public opinion soured further when new allegations emerged. Stories of employees forced to forge numbers, hush money paid to keep a lawsuit quiet, and even philanthropic funds siphoned into private, offshore accounts. The once admired golden boy was recast as a manipulative opportunist. His once loyal staff deserted him in droves. Investors hammered the board, demanding a leadership overhaul. The Fox Innovations brand lost lucrative contracts, overshadowed by scandal. Throughout the ordeal, Ariana and Beatrice clung to each other. They supported each other through depositions and stressful interviews, sharing tips on how to remain calm under legal grilling. Their bond, forged in adversity, blossomed into a genuine friendship. On weekends, they met for brunch, once an unthinkable scenario for a wife and mistress. They'd trade updates, reflect on how surreal life had become, and sometimes laugh at the bizarre twist of fate that made them besties, as Ariana jokingly labeled them. As the legal storm intensified, Ariana faced a personal crossroads. Should she finalize a divorce now, or wait until the trial's outcome? Her lawyer suggested a swift dissolution might protect her from further entanglement. But a part of Ariana wanted to see the case through, to stand in court and sever ties in a final, unequivocal act. Meanwhile, Beatrice prepared to revamp her professional brand, ensuring her name wouldn't be permanently tarnished by association. She planned to launch her own marketing consultancy firm, hopefully free from Gabriel's shadow. Behind thick courthouse walls, grand narratives of justice and betrayal played out. The scumbag millionaire husband was cornered, his empire teetering. Ariana and Beatrice had orchestrated it, but the reality of their victory was more complicated than any triumphant narrative. The price of revenge included dredging up emotional wounds and legal nightmares. But as the trial date loomed, both women felt a calm sense of resolve. Sometimes, making a stand for truth and dignity is worth the cost. The courthouse was packed with journalists, curious spectators, and a line of anxious attorneys. Gabriel Fox arrived under a swarm of flashbulbs, his expression grim but attempting a facade of poise in a designer suit. Ariana arrived separately, accompanied by her lawyer, face set with quiet determination. Beatrice slipped in through a side entrance, wishing to avoid the press gauntlet. Inside, the trial began with the prosecution laying out a comprehensive case against Gabriel. They alleged multiple counts of wire fraud, misappropriation of funds, and conspiracy to hide assets from both investors and philanthropic partners. Witnesses took the stand, former employees, financial analysts, and eventually Ariana, who offered a clear timeline of how she discovered Gabriel's duplicity. She displayed no malice in her testimony, just the calm recitation of facts, including references to the documents she'd unearthed. When Beatrice took the stand, the courtroom hushed. She detailed how Gabriel wooed her with false promises, entangled her in certain business deals, and used her marketing strategies as a veneer for questionable transactions. While she admitted personal involvement with him, she was forthright about how he manipulated her. The defense tried to paint her as a scorned lover seeking revenge, but her composure and the meticulously dated evidence she provided undermined their narrative. Gabriel's attorney argued that his client was the victim of a malicious conspiracy orchestrated by these two women, one resentful wife, one jilted mistress who colluded to frame him. But the prosecution's forensic experts methodically dismantled that claim, showcasing digital footprints leading back to Gabriel. Emails, bank account logs, and recorded phone calls left little doubt about who orchestrated the wrongdoing. Meanwhile, public opinion hovered in the background. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Some viewers found it almost cinematic, the wife and mistress teaming up to dethrone a millionaire. Others questioned whether Ariana and Beatrice's motivations overshadowed the legitimate financial crimes. But the court stuck to the substance of the case: numbers, records, confessions. On the last day of testimony, Gabriel himself took the stand. He was defiant, disclaiming knowledge of clerical errors, blaming underlings for inconsistencies. But cross-examination pinned him down on key documents he had personally signed. By the time closing arguments wrapped up, the jury's faces suggested the defense's claims were thin. When the jury returned with a verdict of guilty on multiple counts of fraud, the courtroom erupted in a cacophony of camera clicks and muttered exclamations. Gabriel stood, shoulders sagging, as the judge announced he could face up to a decade in prison, pending sentencing. Ariana closed her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her. Beatrice swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Outside, reporters clamored for statements. Ariana's lawyer read a brief remark. "Today's verdict confirms justice. Ariana Fox is grateful the truth came to light." Beatrice slipped away, refusing to comment, but feeling an odd mix of elation and sorrow. Gabriel was a terrible man, yet once upon a time she had cared for him in her own naive way. The final trial hammered a definitive nail in his gilded coffin, sealing his downfall. For Ariana, the verdict signified the closure she needed. After so many months of anguish, she felt free. The moment she exited the courthouse, the bright sunlight felt like a new beginning. She texted Beatrice, "It's over." And for both women, that simple phrase echoed with hard-earned victory. They had shattered the illusions and reclaimed their lives, forging an unbreakable bond in the process. In the weeks following Gabriel Fox's conviction, life gradually found a new rhythm for Ariana and Beatrice. The media frenzy subsided, shifting focus to the next big scandal. Gabriel's estate was seized in part to pay legal fees and restitution to investors. Rumor had it he was appealing the verdict, though few expected much success. Ariana finalized her divorce. In a short, decisive hearing, a judge granted her freedom from the man who had deceived her so profoundly. She walked out of the courtroom with tears in her eyes, a swirl of emotions in her chest: sadness for the illusions lost, relief for the future gained. She returned to her modest apartment, no longer feeling overshadowed by a hollow marriage. Over the next months, she channeled her energies into philanthropic work at a grassroots level, forging a new identity beyond Mrs. Fox. Beatrice, meanwhile, threw herself into launching her own marketing consultancy, BL Vanguard, focusing on ethical partnerships. She poured her skill and creativity into building something untainted by scandal. Word spread quickly that despite her involvement in the Fox fiasco, she was a savvy pro. So new clients trickled in, excited to work with a woman who'd proven she couldn't be easily manipulated. She found satisfaction in forging an honest business model, forging alliances that resonated with her renewed sense of integrity. Their friendship flourished. Saturday brunches became a cherished ritual: pancakes and black coffee, exchanging personal updates. They laughed about the comedic ironies of life, how a mistress and a wife ended up best friends, toppling a millionaire's empire. Ariana confided her plans to travel, to see places she and Gabriel never explored together. Beatrice teased that she might join for a weekend in Spain once her business stabilized. They recognized they had formed a bond as sisters in adversity. Neither of them wanted to lose that. They did discuss Gabriel occasionally, with a mixture of pity and exasperation. He was now locked away, his once lavish lifestyle replaced by a drab prison uniform and a future of lawsuits. Ariana occasionally had pangs of guilt, but Beatrice reminded her that he chose his path. They both realized that no matter how flawed he was, he had shaped a crucial chapter in their lives. They resolved to learn from it, to never let themselves be manipulated or overshadowed again. One crisp autumn day, Ariana found a small emerald earring in her old keepsake box. The same earring that started it all. She smiled, remembering how that little piece of jewelry once symbolized betrayal. Now it felt like a reminder of how far she'd come. She texted a photo of it to Beatrice with a message, "Still can't believe we survived that fiasco. Thank you for everything." Beatrice replied with a heart emoji, followed by, "Next chapter, baby." And so, with the prison gates closing on Gabriel, the two women embarked on their own separate journeys, stronger, wiser, and united by a bond that transcended their painful past. They turned the page on a saga of betrayal and revenge, stepping boldly into a new world shaped by resilience, honesty, and an unshakable sisterhood. The scumbag millionaire husband was a distant memory, overshadowed by the brilliance of two women who discovered their worth in each other's company and realized they could conquer anything that life threw their way. Thank you for following this roller coaster saga of Ariana and Beatrice, two women betrayed by the same scumbag millionaire, yet united in an extraordinary alliance. Their journey from suspicion and heartbreak to cunning strategy and triumphant closure shows that even the most twisted betrayals can spark an unbreakable bond. In the end, Gabriel's downfall wasn't just a tale of revenge, it was a testament to the power of sisterhood, resilience, and the willingness to fight for one's self-worth. If you enjoyed this dramatic story of secrets, redemption, and an unlikely friendship, please like this video, share it with anyone who loves a hearty dose of suspenseful storytelling, and subscribe to our channel for more narratives that dive into the raw complexities of human relationships. Your support helps us bring you even more tales of scandal, triumph, and the hope that emerges when people unite in the face of betrayal. Thank you for watching.